Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. Goldbelly ships Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garden's famous cakes. So, if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's goldbelly.com, promo code GIFT.
Hey there, I'm your host, Tisha Michelle, and welcome to #Certified, where you will leave enlightened, empowered, and inspired to live a life of authenticity. Let's go.
Hello.
Yeah, we should be. I was like, somebody doesn't want us to be great.
Right?
And I don't like that.
That's okay, because we're going to keep coming back.
Exactly. I was like, okay, so maybe we just need to adjust a little bit. Energy is still good. Yeah. I still feel amazing. I know you're coming off of a super high, especially like that rush of, going to this photo shoot, having an amazing photo shoot, and then like rushing to like get home so you can get ready. Like, that's just the start, girl. That's just the start.
Like, just felt like I had to record that moment of joy, because I'm like walking down the street, like bursting open with a smile, and like people don't even understand what's going on, but I'm just living in this space. I was so happy. Oh man.
But the beautiful thing is that even though people don't know what's going on with you, they can feel it, because, energy is real. And like, even just like watching like your story, I'm like, oh, look at that joy, that bliss, like pure happiness. I was like, oh, she's vibrating.
Yes, busy manifesting miracles. And for everybody, we all got to win.
Absolutely. So, okay, so let's try this again. I just want you to take a few minutes or moments and let my listeners know who you are, where you're from, and what is it that you do.
Yes, my name is Arah K. Wright. I'm actually from Las Vegas originally. I grew up there. I live in LA now. I'm an entrepreneur, an author, and a mentor to the community. I work with a lot of young women, specifically in the foster community. I have a group of girls that I work with, and we do exercises with, self-esteem building, and, we build famous quotes for ourselves, things to stand by, things to live by. So I call them my daughters of poetry. So, that's just like my own like passion project that I do, but everything, it's just all my passion, writing and being an entrepreneur. I have a business with my daughter. We have a clothing company called Miracle Child that we built together. Really cool. But yeah, that's who I am. I'm here. I've arrived.
I love it. So you definitely mentioned like passion, and you mentioned you are an author, you love writing. So in one of those books that you wrote, Majestic Pretty Thoughts, it's a book of positive mental triggers for the mind, to shift out of that trauma state, which so many of us find ourselves there. And even if it's only for like a few moments, it's huge. That's like such a huge thing, to be able to resonate with something, resonate with someone, whether it's reading like your book, like these poetries, anything of that sort, and to be able to take you away from that state that you're in. And personally, like, I believe that's super important. If the mind can think positive thoughts, that we can actually change our state of well-being. So for me personally, I've been there lots of times, and really and truly, I'll get to the point where I'm just like literally pulling my own hair out. And I'm like, what is going on? That I'm like, oh, I just filled my head with so many negative thoughts and, made up so much stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is it? And I know I like to read, just different variety of books. And I love to read a book, and then I can just like feel myself in that book. And when I feel myself in that book, like I forget about everything else that's going on in the world. So I think it's important when, someone such as yourself uses their words and their experience and their story to not only heal themselves, but heal so many other people. So with all of that being said, let's talk about this book. But I need like the deets. Like, I want you to like share, how did this even come about? Like, where did this even come from? Like, where is it that you're looking to go with it? Like, just give me the story.
Yeah. And that's my favorite thing, is just to talk about this, because it's so important. Where I was, it was last summer in June, I was in a space of complete despair, total loss of identity. I attempted suicide, and I was at my lowest point emotionally, physically. My life was a reflection of what I was feeling inside, which was everything was falling apart. And so was I. And it came to a point where, I wasn't even recognizing the voice in my head. And I didn't even have the capacity to, I remember like people were telling me, oh, you should read this book or read that book or watch this and watch that. And I didn't have the capacity to deal with those things. And, I'd even worked as a community counselor in a treatment center. And I worked with a lot of clients who were dealing with similar issues, depression, suicide attempts, and a lot of it is just really like, you can't focus on anything when you're that deep in it. There's nothing that's just going to be like, oh, I'm going to, attach to this thing for 2 hours or an hour. Sometimes you only just have a few moments to take aside to really start to build. So if a few moments was all I had, I would just start writing down thoughts. And then I got so like happy with just those little notes, those little thoughts. And I got obsessed with like, researching, thoughts and how they affect our emotions and behaviors. And I took the opportunity of working in a treatment center to kind of like really dive into dialectic behavior therapy and how the mind has the ability to shift out of a certain state for just a little moment and create a moment of peace. And that helps with relief stress and trauma from the body, for even if it's just for that few moments. So I'm like, why don't I put a collection of all these things that I've thought over the course of this dark space that I was in, other dark spaces that I've been in. And why don't I put all the beautiful things, all the pretty things, all those majestic ideas that I've had in a book, so that, I can, use that to reach others, to help others heal who are in those dark spaces, who really just have the capacity to open up maybe one page and just read something beautiful to take their mind away from that state that they may be in. For me, it was kind of like, I knew that in that space that I was in, I didn't have a support system. I didn't have anybody who was ever going to come and, check for me. Nobody was even checking on me, family or anything like that. And, in a narcissistic relationship, their aim is really to isolate you and to kind of get you in a space where you really don't even have a reflection of yourself around you. So I didn't have anyone who was going to come and save me. I had to rely on myself at that point. And, this is just like me crawling out of that space and really not focusing on the pain and suffering, but the healing and the art of that. And, reaching out to understand the abuser and not to understand my pain too much, because I didn't want to continue focusing on that. The more I focused on that, the more I felt like I kept digging deeper into a rabbit hole. So this pulled me slowly, step by step, out of that with just the thoughts, the ideas, and it got more and more beautiful. The thoughts became more majestic, more pretty. And, I just created this book for other survivors and other people who may be going through the same dark spaces, or maybe don't have the time or capacity to go out and read a full book, but just really want to hold something close. This book is like good for gifts, friends, parties, events, things like that, where you just want to hand out positivity, hand out love. And that's exactly what this is. Self-nurturing book of love.
I absolutely love it. Like you said, so many things, and now I'm trying to remember. I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to touch on this. I want to touch on that. So this will probably be completely out of order of how you even said it, but it's okay. So one, I love the fact that in the midst of your storm, you decided to write.
Yeah,
that you took the time to write.
It's really the only thing I had to grasp onto as a pen. Even my abuser would actually hate when I wrote, but I knew that, thieves don't break into empty houses and evil does not pride on the weary. You have to be so strong to where it pisses somebody off to see you writing. That's power.
Absolutely.
So, do that more. I had to. And I built a relationship with my writing through that.
I think it's important to get the thoughts out of our head, because when those thoughts are all in our head, it's just chaos. It's chaotic, and it makes us so fearful. and just has us so trapped. But when you take those things, that's all those different thoughts that's going on in your head, and put them on paper, you can just start to make sense of it and to kind of really see like, wait a minute, okay, I'm okay, I'm safe, even if it's in this present, moment, so I think that's, important is that when you do have all these thoughts going on in your head, yeah, put it on paper, whether you're writing a book or not, put it on paper. One of the other things that you said was you didn't have a support system and that there was no one checking on you, so you had to save you. I think that's so beautiful because like a lot of times, we don't, a lot of people don't have a support system. No one's checking. Everybody's caught up in their own thing, and no shade to individuals, but that's just sometimes the reality. But then we can feel so alone and feel like, whether no one loves us, no one cares. And then we just sit in that, but for you to get to that place and just to say, wait a minute, I got to save myself. If you don't mind, like sharing, what was it that really made, because everybody, that switch doesn't go off on everybody. They can just stay in that space and just say, well, nobody else cares, that, and they only can rely on an outside person, where in reality, everything is within us. But that did go off on you. And you said, I have myself. Was it like a particular situation, or like, where did that strength come from to one, acknowledge that you didn't have that outside support, and then two, say, you know what, I am my support. I got to save myself.
Well, really, I had just a realization that I was dead already, in a state of death already. I was already putting things into place that I, didn't really normally think about. I wasn't in my own head because I was putting together life insurance policies for my daughter. I was, just doing little things that I knew. I was leaving notes in certain places. I was actually acting as if I was preparing for my death. And I stopped myself in my tracks and I said, what am I doing? I broke down, and I checked myself into a 24-hour facility, and I just wanted to get help, because if I knew that I didn't have any family support who could really identify and understand with what I was going through, because I did reach out to family members and just kind of try to talk to them, reached out to certain friends that I, still had connections with to some degree. And, nobody was really going to be able to do that for me other than me. At that point, too far in it. I was already cutting my wrist. I was, I'd called the suicide hotline a couple of times, and, I reached that point where it was, I made a plan. It was going to happen. And, something in me was just like, can you just try? Would that be okay? It was like as if myself asked me to try. And, I sat there for a moment on that thought, and eventually I agreed. I agreed to just try every day. If I could just wake up and go for a walk, or do something, or write something down, or take my daughter on a hike. And, I had one day watched this Martin Luther King speech, I Have a Dream speech, and it just like something really powerful hit my spirit. And I called my daughter and I replayed it, and I had her watch it. And then I remembered this space that I went to at a specific park at Kenneth Hahn in Los Angeles. And there was this overlook that I used to go to. And one time years ago, I went there, and there were these birds that I walked out to the middle park, and the birds flew around me, and they sort of guided me over to this ledge area. And I'm looking out over this ledge. I can see all of LA, and it was just like this pure positive energy. And this had been years back. So I reflected on that moment. I'm like, why don't I go to this spot that I connected with? So I get up and I take my daughter, we go there. And this is about 2 days after we watched the I Have a Dream speech. And we walk up to this ledge, and here they've created a monument to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King. And it says, clear on the ground, I have a dream. And it was like, wow. All these 2 years that I'd been depressed in this dark space, and I hadn't gone to this space that I'd went to, and I'd had this magical experience. I hadn't even touched that area. Here I am thinking I'm falling apart, and something is being built here. And if we are a reflection of everything around us, I had to realize in that moment, wait a minute, something is growing in me. It's not something that's falling apart. I'm growing. And I started to read and research and have all these ideas, and it just just really was a place for me to like try to understand the life that I had lived. What am I doing here? How do I why am I here? Why do I want to still be here? And just really digging and reaching for those reasons. And I wrote down reasons of my why. What do I want to do here? What makes me happy here? Just digging into those things. And I got really excited about the journey aspect and the learning. And now I have just this craving for being alive. And so that was only born from that dark space. So, I got inspired through that process to stay alive and to really appreciate the miracle that happens in every single day.
That is, you touched on so much in that I can personally resonate with. And I love how when you were in that dark place and you were contemplating like the whole suicide, you were still reaching out to people, you were calling a hotline, you were listening to that inner voice that was saying like, no, just try a little bit, just try a little bit. It's so easy to get caught up in all the noise in the head that you don't even hear that, really hear, because it wasn't your time, absolutely wasn't your time to go. Hence why you're right here now, even, having this conversation. And I think that's beautiful. And I think it's important to like the listeners and the readers of your book to understand that, a lot of us go through that and that it's okay, and like when I say it's okay, like we all have gotten to like that breaking point, and that if you are feeling like that, just pick up the phone and call someone. Even if people aren't reaching out to you and no one's checking on you, you call that hotline, or even if you're sitting, quiet in those thoughts. And if that small part of you is just like, what are you doing? Like, just entertain that part for a little bit, just entertain it, like, like you did, and say, okay, I agree, I'm going to try. So, if you are, and I'm talking to whoever's, listening, if you are in that space, I know that there's a part inside of you that is saying, wait a minute, try this angle, look at it from a different perspective, reach out to someone, whatever it is. I would just definitely say honor that, just as you did, and look where it led you to. It led you to look at your whole situation and say, wait a minute, everything's not over. Like, I'm able to like rebuild, I don't know if you do like, like in the tarot, like when you go get like a tarot reading and if you ever seen someone and when they pull the cards, they turn over the Tower card or they turn over the Death card, everybody freaks out. Oh my God, I'm going to die. That means I'm going to die. And I'm like, no, you got to step back and look at it. Death is like the death of the old you. That tower is crumbling. So you can now rebuild it, but rebuild it the way that you want, based on like the questions you said, like, what do I want? What makes me happy? Where are these ideas? And it's just looking at it from that, like, your life's not over. It's really, truly just beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that was so, so great that you listened and you incorporated your daughter. You had her listen to like that speech and took her to that place. And I think that was beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, the thing that happens when you're in this, like that suicidal state or state of death, you're really already telling yourself all the things that, you feel. You're saying to yourself, nobody cares, nobody this. And that's a voice of the enemy that's literally echoing back whatever you feel about yourself in that moment. And, one of the things that I wrote down one day, and I'll read it quickly, it's falling in love with yourself is falling in love with the world around you. Learning that you are the world around you is the surrender. Mm-hmm. And, what that means is, you literally have the ability to create that shift for yourself. So, falling in love with yourself is one part. And that's a part that we all just want to project out there as like, yeah, love yourself first. That sounds like an easy part, but that's the beginning. But when you learn that literally you are just a reflection of this heavenly creation that has been brought to life, you start to surrender to the things that you can't control. And you start to kind of raise those heavy burdens of judgment and despair and loneliness and hurt and, low self-esteem and shame and guilt, those things start to be alleviated, because it's like the trees aren't ashamed, the sky is not ashamed, the ocean is not ashamed. These are all very free things that are very useful. And if I'm a reflection of these things, I'm too very useful and I'm very abundant. You start to really connect with what the purpose and value of those things in the world are. And when you create that shift for yourself, you start to discover more parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed, more uses of yourself, more creative value within yourself that you never knew existed. And you can begin to soar through those things.
Absolutely. I say that too. Like every day I start laughing. I'll be like, dang, I'm blowing my own mind.
Okay.
And, I just had I'll have for me, I had 2 sessions today before, we started this call, certain things that was coming through, just being like the conduit, and I'm just relaying the message and hearing their responses and stuff. And I get off the phone, I was like, damn, I'm blowing my own mind.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's wait, this is awesome. And when I say that this is awesome and it's in the most, humblest way, it's because I'm allowing myself to go there. I'm learning more about myself. I'm learning more about the skills and the gifts and everything. But that all came from being in a dark place, as well. And you're saying, loving everything about you, because when you start to love things about you, you start to see the other things. You're like, wait a minute, what just happened? Where did that come from? I'm 39 years old and just finding, these things out about myself. And you're right, it's beautiful. It's magic. I don't know. It's just something about it. But I definitely need you when we get off of this to text me what you just read, because I think that is, I got to put it out on social media and give you your credit. And I want a lot of people to really sit with that and see how does that resonate, with them? Because I know a lot of people have a hard time, loving themselves, because they look at all these things as being perceived as being negative.
Absolutely.
And all the things.
Yeah, we are so deserving of peace and freedom within who we are and the way in which we exist as human beings. I think that we're all these majestic creations of the world. And I'm not going to go look at a flower and go, oh, wow, it's mighty frail, or it's falling apart and it's useless. I'm still going to see the beauty and find the joy in that. And I think that we are also deserving of being seen as who we are and what we are, and be equally accepted, and, something I started to do is, when I see someone that is beautiful and, I want to add light to them, I also say, oh, we are so beautiful. I'm so grateful that I met you or got to be around you. I really make it a point to be that passionate reminder to people. And so part of my journey was to live every day with intention. So that was another agreement that I made with myself. And my intention is to be the light wherever I go and to always exist.
Love it.
So when I see any group of women, doesn't matter, I treat everyone equally. I treat everyone as if I, just fallen out of the heavenly sky, and graced into their lives. I think everybody is so deserving of that. And if I can put enough of that energy out there, I want to inspire a universal, peace and healing that we can liberate, especially the Black woman. I want to create a shift where we can re-identify what that means to stand as a Black woman. I don't want my daughter to think about the things that I had to think about. Oh, I got to make sure my facial expression doesn't look like this at work. No, I should be able to say, oh, I'm having majestic, pretty thoughts. And, this is just my face today. I don't have the same kind of struggles, or even look at her history and her truth as that way. Eventually, we're going to have to start as a collective to redefine what it means to be even a human being. So if we're going to do that, especially as a Black culture right now, where we have an opportunity to use our voices and expand and be present in the media like we are, then it's up to us to really hone in on that shift and recreate the story. As writers, as creators, as authors, as speakers, as healers, this is our work and this is our job. And we are the shift has already happened. We're creating.
Absolutely.
And the more we talk about it, we inspire it. And I think a lot of people who, especially suicide is now the second most common form of death, and I think that with that happening, there's a lot of people going to those dark spaces, and there's a lot of people surviving through those spaces as well. And, when that happens, new spirits are being born, new value of life is happening. And so more people are in this state that, you and I are in, and, the listeners out there who are also, liberating themselves or on the journey to do so. I just want to inspire everybody to continue on. Don't give up, no matter what space you may feel like you're in, just make an agreement to try, reach out to someone, even if it is someone on Instagram who you see that's positive and lighthearted. I'm sure it's worth it, and I'm one of those people that, I'm always just sending people random messages. Like I have, the space in my heart that's just like, reach out to this person or send this person something, or maybe this person may need to hear a certain word, and I just send it, So I want to encourage people to just try, hang in there, it gets better.
Absolutely. I love how you said like part of like your purpose, your passion, your mission, or you're calling it, is to be that light, for other people and reminding. And I think that's so important. So I'm just going to piggyback off of what you said, is that we all do that. And especially like people who are, people are just putting out content, right? So you're putting out content all the time. And that I completely agree with you when you say like part of you, you want to, spread the light to other people, and it's important. And for people like myself who, put content out, I was having a conversation with one of my friends and yesterday, and she was saying, and she owns a blog, and she was saying like how she's putting out all this content, but she thinks that it's falling on, what's that saying, like deaf ears and all these things. And I'm like, no, just keep putting it out. You have no idea who it's reaching just because they're not saying anything, right? It was interesting. Yesterday, I got a message on Instagram, which I'm more, I put content out on Instagram, but I'm really more, for my kids tease me and say that I'm old. I'm more like for Facebook or whatever. So I got this message from her, and she was like, I don't really know you, but you are so inspiring. And then she put a bunch of emojis, and I was like, oh, I appreciate that. And she was like, I'm in tears, sis. I need a strong woman like you to help me. You are so spiritual and authentic. My hubby always speaks good things about you. I, for once, had to stop everything I'm doing to go through your page, and I love it. I'm in tears, sis. Such a wonderful person you are. That made me feel so good, because I go through that too. I'm like, is anybody even reading? Anybody even listening? And it's not because you like, for me personally, not because I need likes or any, because I don't care about any of that. But I'm like, is my message getting across? Is it helping anybody? Is it making anybody feel good? Like, is it, whatever, all this stuff. Right. And like, to me, I feel like Spirit knows that I was questioning that, as well as having the conversation with my friend who was questioning, which was just a reflection of things that were going on in my head as well. And then I get that message and I'm like, wow, and she started off, I don't really know you, because I don't know her. I went to high school with her husband, but we're not like super like close friends or anything like that. But, whatever's going on in her life and behind the scenes, he's like, hey, you should follow this person. Like, she's really X, Y, and Z. And I think that is really important. Like how you said, when you see someone like, oh, you're amazing, and you're like, whatever, it is that you're highlighting on that person, because you never know what that's doing for someone. You never know if that person is in a dark place, like where they're at.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember also that, social media is such a public platform. And a lot of times the people that actually need those things, and the people who really are your listeners, are not going to comment. They may barely even like, because they're in that space where it's hard for them to be emotionally public and vulnerable. That it's very vulnerable to leave a comment and say like, all those things, those passionate, powerful things, or to even reach out in someone's direct messages, not knowing how response you're going to get back. Because when you're in that state, you're already questioning yourself so much, you don't have room for any other judgment. So it's hard to, even respond with feedback when you're in that space. But I know that there were people that I listened to or watched that I was like, oh, wow, this is completely reshaping. And a lot of like, bigger names too, where it's like, oh, I can't reach out to that person, but they really, inspired me. But also for the people who are going through things and on the journey to liberate themselves and find a spiritual path, it's so important to focus and give the credit to yourself. I think we often lack that. We forget that we are the ones who are doing the work. You know, it's beautiful, and Earth has provided so many platforms for people to share and express and connect with each other, but we have to start giving ourselves more credit for the work that we're doing, so that way we can see what we're creating. And creativity inspires the self-esteem. It enlightens it, encourages it, it brings a lot of life to that. So the more that we give ourselves the credit for showing up for ourselves, for going out, meeting people, for listening to people, for doing the work and receiving the rewards, like giving ourselves that credit is a thing that starts to put one foot in front of the other so that we do start to liberate ourselves. And then you can give back that credit. Then you can give back that energy, because until you fill yourself up with enough of that, you don't really have much to give.
Thanks for tuning in to #Certified. If anything resonated with you, I would love to continue the conversation. You can follow me on Instagram at @ItIsTisha. And if you want to be a part of the #Certified tribe, you can join my Facebook group by going to the search tab and putting in #Certified. My website is conversationswithtisha.com. As always, have a great one on purpose. Love you.